As we begin, please turn off electronic devices. I invite you to enjoy the chapel in the back of the sanctuary and note joys and concerns in the book there. If you have little ones, we have a nursery downstairs, and after our service, I invite you all downstairs to enjoy hospitality and to greet one another. Finally, please note the announcements and your order of service with many ways to be engaged in this vibrant community.
Good morning. I'm Cinnamon Wolf. I am the chair of the worship committee. And as many of you know, Reverend Patty is taking some time to recover from her surgery. So we're very glad to have Reverend Monica Dobbins with us this morning from First Church. Thank you so much for being here. Also, I would like to point out a correction in the order of service. I don't know why it didn't get in there, but after the anthem, we will be having a responsive reading led by Shannon Black. This morning, I would like to share with you some words from Joanna Macy. She is an author that talks a lot about how to get through difficult times. And this is from her book, Active Hope. Active hope is not wishful thinking. Active hope is not waiting to be rescued by some savior. Active hope is waking up to the beauty of life on whose behalf we can act. We belong to this world. The web of life is calling us forth at this time. We've come a long way and are here to play our part. With Active Hope, we realize that there are adventures in store, strengths to discover and comrades to link arms with. Active Hope is a readiness to discover the strengths in ourselves and in others, a readiness to discover the reasons for hope and the occasions for love, a readiness to discover the size and strength of our hearts, our quickness of mind, our steadiness of purpose, and our own authority, our love for life, the liveliness of our curiosity, the unsuspected deep well of patience and diligence, the keenness of our senses and our capacity to lead. None of these can be discovered in an armchair or without risk. And please rise in body or spirit and join us in our opening song, number 209, O Come Ye Longing Thirsty Souls.
Oh
Please join us in saying our chalice amendment.
We light this chalice for the warmth of love, for the light of truth, and for the energy of action.
Thank you.
So I love this segment, why I'm here, and I love it almost as much as the You Are Welcome here that we hear every week. I love to hear why different people say that they're here. I love noticing the similarities in what they say, and I especially love noticing the differences in what they say. So, why do I come here? There are more reasons than as I was thinking about this, there are more reasons today than there were when I first walked through those doors, however long ago. And if you'd asked me back then, I probably would have passed the buck. I would have talked about my wife, who is anxious for us to have a church or a spiritual community that we could come to together as a family. I would have talked about my kids, for whom we really value them being able to have access to a wonderful RE program that is balanced and positive, and for excellent programs like OWL. And maybe those were the initial hooks for me. And by the way, you have to ask Wendy if you want to find out her story, because even though our stories are intertwined, they're different. But I initially came here for the health and togetherness of my family. After all, I don't think of myself as a very religious person, and I've never considered myself to be spiritual. So I wasn't coming to church for myself, right? But I've continued to grow and change over the last 2 or 3 years. I've also come to redefine the word church. Now I can admit it. I enjoy being here. I appreciate it. I find things here that are difficult to find, especially living here in Utah. I love the diversity that walks through these doors every week. I love how we celebrate conscience and community over conformity. I love how we recognize that we don't need to believe alike in order to love alike. And I like that the things, maybe the few things that unite us are really important things, and they involve respect for all people and what their beliefs and choices are. Which brings me to the 7 UU principles that I get to read each week in our orders of service, and that I get to see modeled here every week. I love the 7 principles. I often feel their absence when I'm in other groups, and I find myself wishing that everyone acknowledged those and valued those that we do here. I love that questions and doubt and differences of opinion are all not just tolerated here, but celebrated here. I appreciate that after having been raised Mormon, and I especially appreciate that after having been disciplined for my own conscientious nonconformity in that community. And I love that we encourage individual conscience. In fact, even the 7 principles, as awesome as I think they are, I don't think they're considered doctrine or dogma, even then. Was it Captain Barbosa who said that they're more what you'd call guidelines, really? And I love that it's not inappropriate to laugh in church, or to clap, or to cry, or to quote fictional pirates. But back to the point of how we lack any doctrinal test for fellowship. There is no requirement to assent to any set of metaphysical beliefs. This segment even is not titled "Why I Am You." It's why I'm here, and really that's all that we expect is, people show up when they can. And you don't need to label yourself to get up here at the pulpit. And it's probably good that you don't need to label yourself, because I get tired of introducing myself as a agnostic, atheist, materialist, Mormon humanist, and transhumanist Unitarian Universalist. And besides, how long will any of those labels stick anyway? There's no predetermined right answer that the teacher is looking for in this class. I don't know where I'm going to end up, and that's fine. I'm a work in progress. The point is, I'm welcome here, and we all are welcome here. And so I'll continue to come here. So thanks for having me.
I'd like to invite all of the young and young at heart to come forward. I'd especially like to invite my young adults who are in the high school group to come forward for our time for all ages. Welcome. Thank you for coming up here. I'm going to ask you to help me make some magic. And I'm going to ask the whole community to help us make some magic. But first, I want to ask you a question. The question is this: what is something hard that you face on an average, ordinary day? So not an extraordinary day when you see a truck hit a motorcycle. I just heard about that from Jared. That's an exceptional day. That's a different kind of day. On a normal day, what do you say? Oh, when I meet people and they ask me if I'm Mormon. That's a good one. Anybody else? Thunder, Blight, Cannon? All right, so you play Legend of Zelda every day. That's what I'm getting. Yeah, okay. Anybody else face anything that's hard? Say, at school? Is there anything hard about, oh, you guys have the easiest lives ever. Oh, Claire. Social anxiety. Okay. Anything hard about school? Math and everything. Jared? Everything. Really? Hard? Being a new kid in your class. It's hard to share toys. That is true. Anything else that's hard that you might face on an ordinary day? I find it hard to get up in the morning. Anything else? Anything? No? Okay. I guess some of you just have a greatly charmed life, or don't feel like sharing right now, which is always okay here. So, Jaren is not shy, we know that. So what I have here is a bowl of gems. And we are going to turn these gems into magic gems. And the reason that they're going to be magic is that when you have them with you at school, or in your pocket, or your backpack, or maybe resting on your dresser at home, if you think hard enough about this gem, or put it up to your ear, you'll hear something. And this is what you will hear. You will hear this big group of people in this room giving you encouragement. Because that's why we're here. That's why we're together. It's because you're a part of our community. We're all a part of our community, and we carry each other wherever we go, whether we have laughter in our hearts or tears. So what kinds of things, I'd like to ask the adults out there, what kinds of things would you like to say to these folks when they have something hard and they listen to their magic gem? Something?
Don't give up, you're not alone.
Don't give up. You're not alone.
You are loved no matter what.
You are loved no matter what.
You are a great kid.
You are a great kid. Okay, so, yes,
Do something fun each day.
do something fun each day.
You can do hard things.
You can do hard things.
I'm proud of you.
I am proud of you.
We'll catch you if you fall.
We'll catch you if you fall.
It's okay not to succeed the first time.
It's okay not to succeed the first time. So what comes after that? Try again. It's okay to make mistakes. Any other messages we want to put into these magic stones?
You're awesome.
You are awesome.
Kindness should be for everybody.
Kindness should be for everybody.
Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared.
Aha, being brave doesn't mean you're not scared sometimes.
It's not how you fall, it's how you get up.
It's not how you fall, it's how you get up.
Make sure to love yourself.
Say that again?
Make sure to love yourself.
Make sure to love yourself. Anita, are you got something? What is it?
You can learn from your mistakes.
You can learn from your mistakes.
Be your best to understand everybody.
Do your best to understand everybody. Anybody else?
You're perfect just the way you are.
You're perfect just the way you are. How about something that we sing a song about in Children's Chapel and it's printed on the orders of service every Sunday? There's these 7 things. I think we might be whispering those things to you too. What would those things be that we whispered to you, Kari? The 7 principles. Can you name any of them? Be kind in all you do. Very good. Each and every person is important. Anybody else? Hey, 2 out of 7. That's it. Oh, wait, here comes Kari. Each person is important. Yeah, that's the same as every person is important. Everyone needs a voice. How about take care of take care of the earth we live in. So those are all kinds of things that you can hear in these magic gems. Now, before these gems are magic, I need everybody's help. So this is where UU Church is different than other churches. If I were, say, a priest or a priestess, I might have, in a different kind of church, I might have the authority to bless these stones before I give them to you, to make them magic. But in the UU Church, the authority comes from each and every one of us. So I would like each and every one of us to bless these rocks. And the way we're going to do that is by our laying on of hands. So I would like everyone to reach out a hand and touch the person in front of you. Make sure that we reach all the way to the low cross. All right. So let's see, I'm looking around. I definitely am connected to several different people. Okay. So here we go. Everyone, close your eyes. Think about those messages that we just talked about. You are awesome. And everyone is important. And all of the other messages that everybody sent. Think about those. And we're going to push them into those gems. Are we ready? 1, 2, 3, push. There they are. All right. So as you come downstairs today, I invite you to take one of these gems and put it in your pocket. And like I said, even if the magic in these gems is so powerful now that even if you lose it, you can still hear it. All you have to do is think back to this day. Can you do that? Awesome. All right. Join me to go downstairs for the first Sunday of Sunday school of the year.
In the spirit of serving our wider community, we share our Sunday morning worship service offering with a charitable organization whose works align with our values and principles. We are currently donating half of our offerings to the Volunteers of America Adult Detoxification Program. Detoxification is the first step on the path to sobriety, but is often inaccessible to the homeless or those without health care coverage. The VOA offers a solution that makes this first step possible for members of this population who battle a chronic disease and addiction. Will you join me in saying it with me and saying the words printed in the order of service for our offering? We are this church. We are its hands, its heart, its voice. Together we share the wealth of this community and sustain it with our gifts. The VOA organization thanks you for your gifts.
Surprise. I bet you thought I was coming after the anthem. But not so. If you can please take your great hymnals and open to reading 591, I call it Church Free. This is a call and response, so I will read the plain face type, and if you guys will read about the italics. I call that church free, which enters into covenant with the ultimate source of existence.
That sustaining and transforming power, not made with human hands.
It binds together families and generations, protecting against the idolatry of any human claim to absolute truth or authority.
This covenant is the charter and responsibility and joy of worship in the face of death as well as life.
I call that church free, which brings individuals into a caring, trusting fellowship.
That protects and nourishes their integrity and spiritual freedom, that yearns to belong to the Church Universal.
It is open to insight and conscience from every source. It bursts through rigid tradition, giving rise to new and living language, to new and broader fellowship.
It is a pilgrim church, a servant church, on an adventure of the Spirit.
The goal is the prophethood and priesthood of all believers, the one for the liberty of prophesying, the other for the ministry of healing.
It aims to find unity in diversity under the promptings of the Spirit that bloweth where it listeth and maketh all things new.
As the choir is coming up, I want you all to realize that Mary Lou Prince and Reverend Patty Willis are with us in spirit as they wrote this song, and Patty wrote the words based on their experience of the sunrise in Arizona. So please enjoy with us their Sonora morning.
Oh
Am I on? Good morning. And if you are visiting today, I welcome you, but I'm visiting too. So maybe that's a bit of hubris to welcome the visitors when I myself am a visitor. My name is Monica Dobbins, and I am the assistant minister at First Unitarian Church up the road downtown in Salt Lake City, and I'm new to Salt Lake City. I've just been here about 2 months. I'm a recent seminary graduate, and so it is my joy to be here with you and to get to know this congregation as well as the one that I serve downtown. May I invite you into a spirit of prayer, meditation, or reflection. Spirit of life and love, Spirit of truth and mercy, hold us all in this moment, this joyful, precious moment when we can all be together. Hold us in your beauty, in the beauty of existing, and may we see in one another's faces our own beauty. May we never forget that we are beautiful people, living beautiful lives of courage and determination. And may we, as we go through the rest of this service together, hold that spirit of reaching forward, touching the life in front of us, and blessing one another with our very best. May it be so. Amen. What a life! I am living the dream. After years of discernment toward entering ministry, after shopping for a seminary, attending seminary, jumping through the many hoops our denomination wisely provides its aspiring clergy, after going through the search process and landing a job and moving across the country, here I am. I'm living the dream. But this was never about just getting a job, right? After all, our employment is not all that makes us. We are not merely defined by what we do or by what we make, but by the sum of our lives, how we grow and change, how we touch the lives of others, and how we are remembered. Being employed again after 3 years of graduate school has given me a new opportunity to make decisions about the kind of life I want to lead, about the way I want to move through the world. And while living in the suburbs of my hometown of Birmingham, I dreamed about how I could adjust my life to reduce my environmental impact. I dreamed about living downtown in an apartment from which I could walk to work, taking public transportation, maybe even giving up my car, drinking fewer sodas and eating less junk food, enrolling my child in a neighborhood school. I dreamed about living in a place that would make it easier to buy local and use less. Now, these things were hard for me to achieve in Birmingham. The modern South was built alongside the interstate highway system, helping to enshrine housing and development patterns that made cars necessary. In the suburbs, it's harder for small, locally owned businesses to compete against chain stores in easily accessible shopping centers with vast parking lots. I used to have to drive a long way to get to a decent local coffee shop. But here in Salt Lake, I now have many of the things I dreamed of. I found an apartment downtown. It's just 4 blocks from the track station. There are four local coffee shops on my block. The arid climate has taken care of my soda problem. As you can see, I carry my reusable water bottle everywhere I go. And I'm proud to say that I fill my car's gas tank about once every 2 weeks. It's pretty awesome. I can easily measure how much I've reduced my carbon footprint. Now, these are all good things, right? Yeah. sometimes I really miss pulling into Sonic for a cranberry limeade in the afternoon. I carry a much heavier bag in the morning as I prepare for a full day without the car. I didn't imagine what errands would be like now that I can't just stop at the store on the way home. Sharing a car means saving up those errands for the weekend and doing without whatever I forgot to pick up. And don't get me started on the weekly ballet of who gets to use the car when. And there are inconveniences in the world I imagined, new paths to figure out, and also new heartbreaks. When I moved to Salt Lake City, people told me that this was a white city, much whiter than my hometown of Birmingham. What I have discovered since I moved here is that this is not a white city. Rather, it is a segregated city. In my neighborhood, there is locally roasted coffee, locally brewed beer, mid-century modern furniture, and beautiful galleries, local art, local tattoos, and relatively few local people of color. At first, it merely made me sad. Yet another thing I hadn't realized I would have to give up in order to live close enough to work and school to lighten my environmental impact. Another sacrifice I hadn't accounted for. Then I took my first shopping trip to the nearby Target, which happened to be on 300 West. And as I drove past nightclubs and restaurants representing every conceivable ethnicity and looked around at the people who were shopping next to me in the aisles and checking out my purchases, I realized, oh, here are the people of color. The shopping crowd at Target that Friday afternoon was as ethnically diverse as any city I've ever traveled to. The reasons that diversity appears on 300 West instead of in my neighborhood is as easy to guess as it would be in any city. Cities tend to segregate themselves, protecting white supremacy even as their city leaders and citizens cry loudly about their desire for justice. So sometimes as I walk to the track station in the morning, sometimes I wonder, what was more important to me to begin with? Reducing my carbon footprint or living in a diverse society? How much would I pay in gasoline in order to live in a more diverse neighborhood? How do I live when the guiding principles of my life seem to be in conflict? Sometimes we talk as though someday we can achieve a life of absolute merit in which we can eliminate all of the suffering and injustice from our lives. Once in a while, we even let ourselves think we have achieved it. But it's an illusion. The injustices of the world do not exist on a continuum, but rather in tangled webs. Now, in my college days, and perhaps in yours too, we used to hash out these sorts of moral dilemmas while sitting on the back porch with a cheap six-pack of beer and a half a semester of philosophy in our brains. But now, they're the kind of decisions we have to make in real life. Case in point, what should we think about Antifa? A loose organization of anti-fascist activists who usually are very peaceful and also sometimes engage in self-defense actions that are accused of being violent. Or in a cruder form, and currently making the rounds on social media, is it okay to punch a Nazi? Some of my ministerial colleagues have actually preached that sermon this summer after a video circulated featuring a young African-American man who runs up to white nationalist Richard Spencer during a television interview and socks him squarely in the jaw. Now, as we swallow our schadenfreude, some of us might ask, didn't we go after the Nazis once already? Didn't the world decide that Nazism must be crushed and never allowed to return? Wasn't that worth going to war over? And on a deeper level, we must wrestle with the ancient question,
Is it ever okay to engage in violence if we believe it serves a higher purpose? The minister in me, and dare I say the human being in me, says violence is never the answer. And anyway, so much has been gained by using nonviolent strategies in the 20th century. It feels to me like a moral imperative to continue to use nonviolent strategies in the next century. And yet, there's a part of me that grudgingly admits that very little advance in the cause of human rights over many centuries of history has actually been accomplished without any violence at all. When power is imbalanced, the only way to achieve equity is for the side who has the power to give it up. As Frederick Douglass said, power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has and it never will. Can it be that Antifa is making a demand in the name of peace and justice? Now, it is not my intention to seek an answer to this dilemma today at all. My point is, it is a dilemma. We are faced every day with tangled and twisted moral challenges to which there are no satisfying solutions, yet from which we cannot turn away without sustaining moral injury. These challenges are known to philosophers as wicked problems. And wicked problems are everywhere. For example, how can we build a more equitable education system if families of privilege refuse to move into neighborhoods with struggling schools? How can we advocate against single-use plastics without acknowledging the immense number of lives they can save in healthcare and disaster settings? How can we balance our desire for a safe society, including gun control and a demilitarized police force, with security for our own children and families? We must never let ourselves believe that it is possible to live morally unambiguous lives. This is especially important in these times of political polarization, which families are ripped apart by political disagreements, and even our neighbors are suspect. We live in a time when centuries-old sources of truth, such as religious tones, have proven themselves to be morally ambiguous, biased, and multifaceted. And in their place, a million opinions are presented as plain fact and defended as God's own truth. Public figures declare that we are living in a post-fact era when truthiness is as important as truth itself. And yet, we must not succumb to moral relativism. It is possible to take moral positions on the issues of our times, while acknowledging that those positions must be constantly examined and scrutinized, and that at any moment, all of us are doing the best we can with what we have to work with. So, how do we do that? What kind of a just world do you imagine? How do you propose that we get there? And what will we have to give up, individually and collectively, to make that world real? This morning I offer to you 3 spiritual practices that help us make sense of wicked problems and settle down into moral positions that are principled, yet not inflexible. The 3 practices are humility, curiosity, and relationship. So let's unpack humility first. Information these days comes to us not in waves, but in tsunamis. And it's not just bad news, it's confusing news. Suddenly it seems everyone's an expert. But the truth is that we often take positions, the implications of which we cannot fully understand. For example, I am neither an economist nor a health policy expert, so how can I really know the impact of the Affordable Care Act on the nation's small businesses? Yet I've advocated publicly and strongly for the ACA. At some level, I know that my advocacy comes from my own experience of getting through school with only the ACA to protect my family. from any real understanding of policy. So when I'm confronted by someone who is genuinely hurt by the impact of the ACA on their business, my first instinct is to take it personally. That's my family you're talking about. But when I practice humility, I know that I cannot possibly understand the business owner's position, or really even the middle ground of facts and figures. I have no option but to stop, listen, believe what they're telling me, and then find a way forward together. I'm reminded here of the words of the physicist Niels Bohr, who said that the opposite of a great truth is not a falsehood. The opposite of a really great truth is another great truth. Even if we spend our entire lives in pursuit of knowledge, we will never learn it all, and we will miss the great truths of one another's experience, the experiences that no one life can contain. When we are faced with the real limits of our own capacity for knowledge, there is no shame in admitting we don't know. Simply to be willing to say, I don't know, takes humility. For me, that's cause for rejoicing. What freedom I have when I can admit that I don't have to know everything. When we are freed from the burden of having to know, then we have made space for curiosity. And my favorite way of thinking about curiosity comes from the Vietnamese Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh, who invites his followers to make a habit of asking, are you sure? The practice of are you sure invites us to notice mindfully when we are making decisions based on our limited knowledge and experience, and check in to see if our preconceptions are really correct or if there are other possibilities. It dovetails so well with the UU principle of engaging in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. At the moment at which we stop searching, when we think we have arrived, we are no longer being responsible. The question, are you sure, is a lamp that lights new paths we might not have noticed before, new ways of looking at old things, and keeps us searching. And finally, as we face decisions with humility and curiosity, which way shall we go? We know that sometimes we will be called upon to make decisions that require courage and to take positions that are unpopular. That requires real convictions. Yet we have also committed to remain open and flexible and curious. So let us then also commit to moving in the direction of real relationship. Rather than choosing a party line that prioritizes principle over people, let us be in communion with the people around us, the people who live in our neighborhoods and in our cities, whether we agree with them or not. My friend and professor, Mark Morrison Reed, gave an astounding speech a few years back at the 50th anniversary of the March Across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama. He spoke with tears in his eyes of white men and women who had marched across that bridge with their African American neighbors in 1965, yet were recalcitrant about making lasting change for the cause of racial justice, until their own children brought home non-white spouses, until their biracial grandchildren sat on their knees, until their new family members talked about being stopped by police or turned down for loans or jobs. Then it was personal. They had marched across that bridge all those years ago because it was the right thing to do. But it wasn't until the issue came into their own homes that they did the right thing because their own lives were on the line. Look around you. Yes, here in this room, but also in the many varied rooms of your life. Do you see only people just like you? People who think like you, talk like you, have experiences and opinions like yours. And it's time to get out. Be curious, ask why, be humble. Go to places where you are the stranger, the minority, the alien. And be in relationship with people who have something to teach you. That is my dream. For Salt Lake City, for our beloved church, for my own wild and precious life, and for yours. Amen.
Will you all please now open your teal hymnals to hymn 1017, Building a New Way. We'll sing all 4 verses.
Please rise and go.
May you all go forth and be beautiful, beautiful in your struggle and beautiful in your determination to find freedom and joy in this world. May love be with you, and may you hold each other in your hearts as you leave this place. Blessed be.